The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. Let's start with a question. Do you believe a person can become possessed by a dark, evil entity? That in some way, their faculties, bodily agency and autonomy, emotions, thoughts, behaviors, and personality can somehow be overridden by a demon? I've never witnessed or experienced it, but I'm about to tell you a handful of stories from those who have. I'll warn you, these stories are dark and genuinely scary, and will make you question what you believe about demonic possession. In this episode of the Red Treehouse, I'm going to tell you 4 true demonic possession accounts from people who either experienced it firsthand or witnessed it. And I'll throw in a terrific set of strange haunting stories to kick us off. Can a person truly be possessed by a malevolent demonic force? Or is there a more natural explanation? I'll share the stories. You decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Welcome to the Red Treehouse. Story 1. A series of strange hauntings. I'll share some of my own as well as people who I know, who were dead serious about their ghost stories. The thing about it is, it's around 2 a.m. here, and I am freaking myself out just thinking about these stories. Anyway, when my family and I moved into our first house, it was one we built and it was so spacey, about 3,000 square feet plus. We were all happy because we had just come from an apartment and lived there all our lives. But things were seriously not right at this new house. It was tri-level, basement, main, upstairs. Even when all the windows were closed and no doors were open to the outside, the door upstairs would open slowly, slam shut, then a few seconds later, open again. Sometimes the doors would take a motion that a person who walked in the room would make. Also, when you would walk downstairs, you would have this feeling. I mean, this dreadful, awful feeling. At first I thought it was just me, but my brother and my sister felt the same when I asked them. Quoting my sister, anytime I would go downstairs to the main floor kitchen for a midnight snack, I wouldn't eat at the table because it was too freaky. I would put my back to a corner and look around as I ate. The downstairs was kept chilly and really scary. Like any time I had to pick up something down there, I would run to get it and get up as fast as possible. That feeling is really, really hard to describe. I have yet to feel it again regularly at a certain location. One time my brother was sleeping on the couch in our living room when he felt something stroking his face, something cold. He opened his eyes and saw nothing. He tried to push it out of his memory and go back to bed, but it came back again, and that's when he hauled ass into his room. That house, I loved it, but it was haunted. I swear to God it was. And stories besides the house is about my friend. He is a few years older than me, but I think his family had some sort of curse or gift, call it what you want, that lets him communicate with the spirits much easier. I'll go more into depth a little bit later, but his mom, grandpa, etc. from all his mom's side has it. Anyways, Here's some of his stories, and I can say for 100% certainty, he wasn't kidding or joking. Okay, ever since he was little, he would have a hard time going to bed because of ghosts. They would constantly harass and haunt him. Like the instant he lied down, he couldn't get up and it would hurt him in his chest. He'd have this crushing feeling, and he would feel like he was being choked, but it would never kill him. When he was young, he'd sometimes go 3 days without sleep because he knew the instant he went down, it would happen all over again. He would lie back slowly, like you would when you would do sit-ups, but very slowly. And the closer his back got to the bed, he'd hear this low growl getting louder and louder. Sometimes he'd be so tired, he'd say, "Screw it, hurt me," and just flop down, only to wrestle with it before he was knocked out. He tried screaming, and nothing came out of his throat. He swore he could sometimes see it standing over him, and when he told his mom about this as a child, she told him, "You're a man. You have to beat it for it to go away." So he assumed his mom also dealt with it, and that now that he's older and more observant, he thinks she hasn't beat it at all. He also hears stories from his mom's dad, who he calls his Gramps, about this sort of thing, like the same sort of stories. I think it's a ghost haunting his family or something, or some kind of curse. Sometimes he'll have that ghost feeling for a month straight, and then sometimes it wouldn't be there for several months. One time, this same friend went to a church in some really small backwater town with his friend. I don't remember the circumstances, but they said it looked like a weird church. And during service, the minister decided to speak in tongues. So he gives this long sermon in some weird, strange tongue, when all of a sudden his friend is like, Dude, we have to get out of here." My friend, being a guy who never walks out of a church service, says, "No, we are staying. What's your problem?" But the other guy is like getting hysterical and is screaming, "Now, let's get out of here," like in a mad, loud, almost talking whisper. When they get out of the building, my friend asks his friend why he wanted to get out so bad. The friend replies, "Well, you know the guy who's speaking in tongues? Well, he's speaking in my language. And he was saying, 'Arise, demons. Arise. Come into here. Arise, demons.'" It was pretty fucked up. Another story. One of my church members goes on a missions trip. They are helping out small churches doing praise nights and stuff. One day, they come onto this really small church and get all ready. Only about 8 people show up from the church, but it's okay anyways. They go through their skits, presentations, songs, etc. for the night. But throughout the night, my friend said he wasn't feeling anything. He felt as if something was wrong. Also, when these guys pray, it is a special group. They usually pray out loud, because that just feels right. But that night, when they were doing their praying, it was dead quiet. And my friend said he wasn't able to connect. He said it just felt wrong. Well, after the whole thing, they were having some snacks and fellowship in the hall before bed. They were going to spend a night there, which was cheaper than a hotel. My friend mentions his feelings, and surprisingly, everyone in the group had the same weird feelings. So they discussed this further. And when they were talking about who was doing which job and who they got to know, one guy was like, "Jason prayed with so-and-so, and they sat here and there," until they got a good picture of where everyone was during the whole time in the sanctuary. Then suddenly, one of the guys who was in charge of the overhead projector in the very back comes out and says, "Wait, that can't be right. If all of you guys were there and accounted for, then who the hell was the man sitting next to me?" None of them got any sleep. Another story. This one is a short one and a little less scary, but I'll share it too. My cousin was in the Korean Army barracks getting some sleep when they heard a few guys screaming just outside. All of a sudden, 3 guys burst into the room and woke everybody up. They were running like hell from something and were still swearing and screaming. But when someone turned on the lights, there were only 2 guys standing there. Everyone in the barracks agreed they saw 3 guys come in, but nobody could keep track of the guys who came in after the chaos and in the dark. The barracks was located near a battlefield where it was rumored thousands of lives were lost in the Korean War. And my final story. This one is really freaky. One of my friend's best friends had this hella scary dream one night. She was on a bus with her mom, but something felt off. Something felt wrong, because nobody was speaking on the bus, and the bus was always going in a slight downhill. Then suddenly, it hits her. The bus was driving to hell. She jumped out of her seat and went to the bus driver to warn him that they were going to hell and to turn around. But when she got there, she discovered it was the Grim Reaper driving the bus. She ran back to her mom and screamed at her mom to follow her off the bus. But her mom just stared blankly forward. Making a move, she opened one of those emergency exit windows on the bus and started to help her mom to get off. But she was going first and was holding her mom's left hand to force her to follow. Just when she's about to jump off the bus, she turned around and saw the Grim Reaper holding onto her mom's right arm, with the arm twisted around the mom's back. In the dream, she screamed and was suddenly forced to jump off the bus by herself. She then watched the bus carry her mom off to hell. This is when she wakes up, completely soaked in sweat. She was hella scared and went to tell her mom about the dream. It was now in the morning. When she goes into her mom's room, she finds her mom dead, with her right arm twisted around her back. Story 2. A case of demonic possession. My earliest memory with this thing was when I was a kid. I was in bed and something woke me up. It felt wrong and terrible, so I hid under my covers like a kid would. And I felt this thing creep up my bunk bed, up the ladder, and literally just stare at me. I could feel its presence right outside of my blanket. I fell back asleep somehow, desperately wishing it would leave. It would then give me nightmares. For years, and they'd always be the same. I'd be in bed, like I was awake, but I'd be paralyzed and just see it hovering above me. It always had the shit-eating grin on its face, like it was enjoying what it was doing. It came in many shapes, but the 2 eye holes and smile will always be burned into my memories. Sometimes in the dream I'd be able to move, but my body would weigh a ton, and I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. I would cry for help only to find my voice didn't work. I'd literally crawl out of bed sometimes and turn on the light, only to find it didn't work either. Sometimes I'd crawl and make it all the way to my brother's room or my parents', but they'd never be able to help me. All the while that thing was there, and just eating it up. The thing is, it always felt so realistic, like I didn't know I was dreaming until I woke up. It was horrifying. Sometimes it bled into actual waking paralysis, and I would know for sure I was awake, but be actually paralyzed. I would see it lurking around my room, crawling on the ceiling, or just hovering right above me, smiling, like it loved what it was doing. Eventually, I learned how to fight back. Instead of getting scared in those dreams, I would get angry and swing at the thing if I could. It changed its tactics and started giving me different nightmares. But when my sleep self started to notice it getting dark, I jolt myself into lucidity and banish whatever form it took and change my dreams. But then it came for me in my waking life. It would whisper awful things to me, make me distrust people and hate myself. I had no idea it was the thing, and it was putting the thoughts in my head. It sounded like my own voice. It would make me hurt myself, and it drove me to attempt suicide in high school. It made me do awful, destructive things, and I lost a lot of friends. I'm still traumatized by this, and have a shaky relationship with people in general. As I moved out of high school, I got into spirituality. I did a ton of research about energies and entities and finally put the pieces together. I was possessed. It was a demon. Probably a low-level one, but a demon all the same. At my lowest point after the suicide attempt, it showed itself to me in person. I had just been kicked out of my house and was living in a total dump of a place. I really hated myself, and I was getting drunk and throwing things and channeling a lot of anger. And I guess that was enough for it to manifest, because I heard a deep rumbling, almost like a growl, and I could feel something coming from the other side. Then a shadow appeared, complete with horns, a tail, and glowing red eyes. I felt powerful fear just by looking at it, as if it radiated fear and negativity. It didn't say anything, and I willed it to leave, and it did. Or maybe it just made itself invisible again. I started to realize it was feeding on my negativity. It all started with the nightmares, that mindless fear, and its smile. I was food for it, or it knew how to play me to make food. So I starved it. I aggressively changed my life. I was already into spirituality, but I devoted my life to it and uplifting myself and clearing my energy. I found God and made His presence the one at my shoulder, His voice the only one I heard. I even started casting spells and cast a powerful banishing spell. I beat it with a passion. As the paper etched with all its foul deeds burned away, I actually felt the oppression I had known all my life start to fade. I felt confident in the fact that it was gone, and confident that I could shape my life, just like I had shaped my dreams. I haven't had any nightmares since then, no physical incursions. I still have some negative thoughts, because who doesn't? But they aren't nearly as frequent or as loud as they used to be. But maybe it's still there. Maybe it's just silently biding its time, waiting for me to slip up so it can sink its teeth in one more time. We'll continue right after this quick ad break. Story 3. The Case of the Possessed Friend. At first, everything was normal. We went camping with a group of friends and she was enjoying herself just fine. It wasn't until night that this thing would come out of her. I've never stayed the night with her before, so I'm not sure if this is new or if this is a regular thing. But here goes. We were all really exhausted from running around in the heat, so everybody crashed. There were about 5 of us in one giant tent. I thought everyone had fallen asleep, but after I dozed off, I heard some slapping noises, so I opened my eyes and saw her standing in the corner of the tent, in jumping jack position, but not jumping, raising her arms and slapping her sides really fast. Her arms looked like sticks, they were so stiff. I thought to myself, give her a nightgown, and this is the shit out of horror movies. But I didn't realize how right I was at that moment. I chalked it up to needing to get some energy out before bed and kept trying to sleep. A little while later, I heard some really fucking creepy laughter. It didn't even sound like her. I finally woke up and said something to her like, "Dude, what is so funny?" And what are you laughing about in the dark alone? She didn't answer. To be honest, the laughter sounded a bit like crying as well, so I asked her, "Are you laughing or crying?" And this time she answered. She said, "Both, fucking fuckers." She yelled it, and it was so intense. So I said, "Are you all right?" And she didn't answer. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sleep through this now, because I'm kinda freaked out. She did this the entire fucking night. Later, I found her on the ground with her legs spread, just slapping herself, and laughing hysterically, yelling, "Fucking fuckers." Weird, right? The next day I told her she really creeped me out, and I tried to ask her what she was doing. She said, "I guess I just had to get it out of me." And I was like, "Alright, well, that's really weird, but I guess I still like you." She seemed okay for most of the day, until that night, when this time, I saw her switch from herself to this demon. We were walking casually through a festival, just talking and being happy, when all of a sudden she looked at me extremely intense and started speed walking. I thought something happened, so I ran up next to her like, "What's going on?" And she gave me this face I will never forget. The corners of her lips were turned down. Her eyes were bright like fire. And she said, "I'm not listening." I didn't want to lose her in this festival because I felt like she was a danger to herself and possibly to others. So I chased her through this place and tried to get her to sit down. She started laughing again. That dark, sinister, creepy-ass laugh that turned into a cry and then a laugh again, and stayed very quiet otherwise, unless it was to insult me. I tried to make small talk just to see if I could break through whatever she was going through, but she was completely resistant. I finally got her back to camp, and when we got there, she sat in a chair all still, just smiling that creepy smile, and then turning down the corners of her mouth, doing the contorted face. Her eyes were intense, and she was looking at me like she was going to jump up and choke me. You ever felt someone's hatred and felt like they were gonna kill you? Well, I have, and this was it. I felt like at any moment I could be killed by this girl. I said to her, "Girl, what has gotten into you? I'm really creeped out." And then she got on her hands and knees and crawled towards me smiling like she was thinking some terrible shit. And then she bobbed her head left and right, trying to keep eye contact with me. I smiled at her, because I didn't know what else to do. And she smiled at me back. I shook my head yes. She shook her head yes. I shook my head no, and she did the same. She was now copying me. Guys, it was so fucking creepy. So I finally said to her, "Look, I don't know how to read you or take you right now. And if you don't stop, I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna put up with this much longer." And then the laughter started again. She started tapping her nails on my chair and pushing the little button that makes it recline, like she was acting like a fucking maniac. It was legitimately nuts. I felt like this was some kind of demon trying to rudely play with me. Finally, her boyfriend walked up and I stood up so fast and was like, "Bye." I didn't say anything to him about it. I just left. And now I have these memories that make me cry every time I think about it. If I picture her standing in that tent, my body is covered in goosebumps, and tears are running down my face. Guys, I'm shook. I cried the whole time I typed this. I haven't contacted her yet, but I think she's coming back home today from that camp, and I don't know how to ask her about this. I want to try to get her some help, but I'm also super worried about what will happen if I stoke the fire. I should also add that this girl is in her 30s, so I don't think she was acting. She's too mature to pretend to be possessed. Trust me on this one. I forgot to add the part where she examined her body like it was brand new to her, checking out her skin and legs and breasts like she hadn't seen it before. It was extra creepy. A quick update. She called me yesterday to see if I would let her sleep over for a couple of days. She said she needed to get her shit together before she goes back home to her home state. I told her that my kids were home with me and that I didn't feel right letting her come in because what happened over the weekend really scared me, and that I was scared for my life in the most literal sense. She was surprised but not shocked. She didn't ask what happened. I think she was probably pretty reluctant to actually find out, but I told her anyway. I relayed the whole story, and I said that I thought she should get some help. She was really concerned that she scared everyone away, because apparently her boyfriend has dumped her and all of the other friends in the tent are no longer talking to her, which makes me fucking weep because it's so sad. I guess they did hear her. They just didn't care enough to do anything about it. So I assured her that I'm not going to abandon her, but that I'm going to find her some help. I suggested that she look into some spiritual therapy to try to release what darkness is inside of her. Whether it's emotional or a spirit acting through her, she needs some help. I mentioned that I thought she may have a friend in there who needs to go home, and she says she knows she needs help and is willing to get it. But I think it was all very overwhelming for her, so she politely asked if I'd let her call me back. I said yes, and I haven't heard from her yet, but I suspect I'll get a call today. Story 4. The Case of a Possessed Family Member. Bet you have never heard of anything like this before. I am a Muslim. We all believe in jinns. Look them up for more info. I thoroughly believe in my religion, and if I have a moment of doubt, I just remember this story. I was in grade 8. I had this estranged aunt that I didn't talk to for years because her and my mother were fighting. One day, out of nowhere, my mother receives a phone call from her mother, telling her that they need to pick up my aunt from her mother's house. When she came back, my mother looked terrified. For the next week, she spent all of her time on the phone. I didn't think much of it, due to me being 13 at the time. But I eventually figured it out after a sheik came to inspect my mother, and that my aunt claims that she is possessed. I explained why she looked 24/7, couldn't handle listening to the Quran, couldn't pray, and had to go and stay in the bathroom a lot in a day. She also had her fit of madness, like she would suddenly, out of nowhere, just change. Her voice would be rougher, her mannerisms eccentric, and always with a smile on her face. This is usually triggered when either she goes to the bathroom, listens to the Quran, or listens to the Quran then goes to the bathroom. Most of the time it's this. The sheik we brought in wasn't relatively normal. So the story of this guy is either one of the two ones I'll say now. I don't remember which one. Maybe it's both. Story 1. When the guy was young, his father complained about a cat always meowing, so the guy nailed it to a wall. They say there's a spot in the cat's back that it doesn't feel, and that's where he was nailed. But I'm not sure. After he's done, a good jinn got impressed with how mentally strong he was, so they partnered up to perform exorcisms. The second story is a bit longer. Anyways, here's where it gets creepy. When my aunt was normal, she explained how this happened to her. One day, she says, she was cleaning out her husband's closet when she came across something wrapped in a pouch. She opened it up and noticed this strange rock thing that had squares and letters she had never seen in her life before. But then she noticed something on the rock. It had my mother's name on it, in Arabic. The rock had some rope around it. She untied it, and then she became possessed. So there are a lot of stories where I live about jinns and the such. I have more semi-personal stories other than this one, but let's see if you think what I'm saying is BS or not. The general gist of it is that they work like a curse. Someone plays with magic because of something or someone they want. So they have a jinn possess the person. It's mostly in the mind. Its usual purpose is to drive the person insane. Sure, it can do physical harm, but it's rare, and it's mainly used by positions to blackmail people into paying them. This case was different, but not unheard of. My aunt's husband loved my mother and used the thing to get her to come to him. But my mother got lucky, because when my aunt opened the pouch and untied the rock, the jinns got into her. One day, we were all at our other aunt's house. Little did I know, my father, uncles, and aunts planned for the sheik to come by to perform an exorcism. We were at the next room, and I cannot fathom why my mother brought us with her that day. But anyways, when the sheik came, she tried to run away. My father and uncles had to restrain her while he read stuff to her. The screaming coming from her was like it came from a level of hell. My uncles and father say that a cockroach came out of her nose at some point, signifying that at least one jinn came out of her. My first direct interaction with her came when I got out of the room to go back home after 15 minutes of her screaming. When she left the room, we saw her in front of us, commenting on each and every one of us, me, my brother, and my cousins, with this big fucking smile and her eyes wide open. She called my brother some name, which means that he looks Spanish. When I passed, she didn't say anything. She just kept on looking. I'm the only one that didn't get a comment, and I'm still terrified at why that was. Anyways, after some weeks she got better with the sheik's help. She'd usually hear or see doors banging and the sort, but most of the time it's nothing extreme. Until one day, the sheik wrote something on the back of her foot. He told her not to look at it, and that he'll be back the day after. Curiosity got the best of her, and she looked down. It said Allah down on her foot. The reason he did this was to show the remaining jinns that my aunt didn't care about Islam or some shit like that. We then knew that he's the bad sort of exorcist, the type that would use magic to undo magic. They fired him, even after he warned them that things would get worse for her. Now, in the present day, her mental situation improved greatly, at the cost of other physical aspects. No longer does she suddenly lose control and become something else, but she lost control of one of her hands last year. It's hard to explain, but I'll try. Her fingers are basically inside out. Like make a hook shape with the finger. Now make it with all of your fingers. Great. Now reverse it the other wrong, very wrong way. Not only that, but a few weeks ago she started having trouble walking with the leg, and now she walks with a severe limp. We had 4 doctors check up on her, and they all say that there's nothing technically wrong with her, which in and of itself stuns the doctors, because there's obviously something wrong with my aunt. Story 5. A case of demonic possession. Hey, so I'm 29 years old from Hungary, and I only talk to a handful of people about this ever. English is not my native language, so sorry for any mistakes. It started when I was 15 years old. Me and my girlfriend at the time were drinking in the back of my primary school. We were on the brink of breaking up, so we got drunk, talked a lot, and we did break up later that night. It was late, so I decided to take her to her place. It wasn't that far, and when she closed the door, she left me devastated at that spot. She happened to live near our town graveyard, and I got this stupid idea in my drunken, depressed head to go into the graveyard and sit on a tomb. I did just that. I was sitting there for about 45 minutes in the dark in the middle of the graveyard at around 1 a.m. During this time, a fox came up to me and I petted him, unaware that it could be rabbit or something. I wasn't thinking about this, only later when I was like, holy shit, I'm an idiot. It could have bitten me, because one of the symptoms of rabies is that the affected animals are friendlier. But I just pet him a little, and he left me. When I decided it was enough sitting there, I went home and got home no problem. Nothing strange happened that night. Some days later, me and the boys were hanging out in front of my old primary school. We were ganging around that school all the time. It was sort of like our hub. We decided to make a group photo. There were like 10 of us. One of my friends took a picture, and that was when the first strange thing happened. Everyone looked normal except me. My eyes are shining in the picture. We found it strange, but we thought maybe it was the lighting because it was nighttime and the only light source was the school's lamps at the entrance, which were always on at night. I switched places with one of my other friends, but in every picture I took, no matter where I stood, no matter the lighting, my eyes were glowing. We thought it was strange, and I freaked out a bit, but there was nothing we could do about it. I didn't think much about it after that. It was around that time when I started to feel uneasy in general. I had mood swings, and I felt like someone was watching me all the time. For example, when I was playing on my PC in my room, my closet was behind me, and there was a half-meter wide gap between my closet and the corner of the room. That spot was always pitch black, and I felt that someone was standing there. I always had this strong feeling to turn around and check the spot, but I never looked, and I never had the courage because I was sure that if I turned around, I would see something that would scare the shit out of me. I was terrified for seemingly no reason, and I haven't had any bad feelings about this before. This feeling became the norm for me, this constant dread, when I was alone. I also started to see things from the corner of my eyes. One day I was walking home from school when I thought I saw a severed head on top of a car for a split second out of nowhere in broad daylight. Of course, there was nothing when I looked straight to it. I saw figures randomly, human-like figures, but only half of them. I saw only the lower half of them, under the torso part, but I somehow felt their gender. I could feel it, but these were only for seconds. I heard strange disembodied voices, out of nowhere for a split second only, and the shrieking scream of a man at different times. I was obviously having a rough time, but I didn't talk to anyone about it, not even my parents. I lived with my father that time, and it wasn't the best between us at all, and my mother was abroad, and we didn't talk much either. I was searching about the symptoms I had had the past couple of weeks, and found this page about possession. I believed in the paranormal anyway, but when I read about this stuff, that possession can occur when you are in a weak mental state, depressed, drunk, or just near a site where someone lost their lives, like an accident or cemetery. Well, I got almost everything checked. Being in a cemetery drunk and freshly broken up and depressed, I was like an open door for any spirit according to that site. The site even mentioned the glowing eye. It meant that there's more than one spirit in the body when that happens, or something like that. Creepy as fuck. I started documenting the things happening, or at least I tried to, and I have had successes. I'm pretty sure I saved everything on a CD if I remember right. Videos, pictures, and even attempted an EVP recording. But that CD and my old PC, which may contain these things, is somewhere in my father's house, with some of my old stuff that I haven't seen for almost 10 years. There were pictures I made of my face, for example, and on the picture there was my face, but there was another half face, and it looked like it was coming out of mine. It was foggy, but you could spot the major shapes of a face. That was the only pic I showed my father out of everything. He called bullshit, so I didn't bother with it anymore. I also made a video recording in my room when there was a huge storm outside. I pretty much just hovered the camera over my room, and it was about a 20-second video. After that, I uploaded it to my PC and opened it with a video editor and checked it frame by frame. When I get to my door in the vid, it happens in like 5 frames. I had a glass door. The lower half was wood and the upper half is this rigid, don't know the exact word for it, glass, so I could only see silhouettes in front of it when it was closed. By its height, a childlike figure leaned on my glass door from the outside out of nowhere and put her left arm on the glass. She had these black eyes, and her mouth was a black hole too. It was open like she's screaming. Then she disappeared the way she appeared. It happened so quickly I could barely see it at normal speed, and afterwards I slowed the video down and knew what to look out for. But I cut the video and slowed it down at the door. I wanted to show it to my closest friends. I did show it to them, along with the EVP, and they freaked out and got scared of me. I kept hanging out with them, but they were kind of cautious towards me, and they didn't know how to deal with these things of mine, so we really didn't talk about it, because I enjoyed their company, and the more I was with friends, the less time I had to spend in dread. About that EVP, it was just a quick impulse one night to make it. I started the voice recording on my phone and kept talking for like 10 minutes about these things that are happening to me and the feelings that I had. When I listened to the recording the next day, I was blown away. It could sound cliche, but during the recording I asked, "Please give me a sign." And I could hear a male voice talking over my voice when I said sign. I gave it. His voice was like he's shouting it, but from afar. That voice was fucking scary, and I can still remember it clearly. If I ever go and visit my father, I will dig through my old stuff and will try to find these proofs, because it's so annoying now that I can't show you. More stuff happened throughout the 4-month period, and I can go into detail about my dreams and other happenings later. But I want to tell you how all of this ended. It ended with a dream. I was in the middle of a small town, and I only remember that I was laying on the ground facing upwards and couldn't move. Above me were 3 old lady figures. All 3 of them had this mosaic face, a pure red, a blue and yellow colored face, and they were talking about something I don't remember, only the last sentence. "Leave him. He's suffered enough already." I woke up, and all the bad feelings, every strange happening just disappeared, and I haven't had anything like it since. I think I was possessed. Everything points towards that, and I never sought any help from any professional or anyone else. I've never had any health problems before or after this. I'm physically and mentally healthy, and have been all my life. I've never had to go to a hospital ever. Maybe I got lucky, and the spirit got bored of me. But then I don't understand my dream. Who were the old ladies? And why did they convince the spirit to stop torturing me? What did you think of these true demonic possession stories? Comment on Spotify, and let's talk about it. And do you have your own demonic possession story and want me to share it on the show? Email redtreehousepod@gmail.com, and I'll feature it in an upcoming episode. As we close this episode of the Red Treehouse, we're left with these lingering questions. Is demonic possession real? Can a person truly be taken over by a hostile, demonic force or entity? Or is there some other, more natural explanation? I've shared the stories. Now you decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Thanks for joining me in the Red Treehouse.